Hello and welcome back to another episode of SuperCoach Insider. My name is Ben.
And I'm Chris.
Hello,
And
Chris.
this is actually a little bit weird, isn't it? It's a little bit weird. You're not right next to me.
It's a little bit
I'll
weird.
be honest.
Thank you very much, Chris Kashiri, our special guest for this evening, calling in from Rockhampton, I believe, Chris.
I am, yes. I'm on a work trip, and that seems to be happening more and more and more. So, I actually just I packed my webcam and my nice little Astros with its mic, so I could do some. And I actually made sure that the hotel I was staying in had some decent Wi-Fi. So, this is all also that I could podcast. By the way, it's a pretty good effort, really. To be fair.
Well, Chris, may I just say that your headphones are very slimming to your face, but may I suggest you move over so everyone can see you? Okay, so Thank you very much for joining us. This will be a lovely episode of Supercoach Insider, so I am absolutely rapt to be here this week. You can join us on the socials, so facebook.com/SC Insider, and on Twitter we are SC_Insider_ on Twitch, Chris.
We are twitch.tv/SC_Insider. On YouTube and all major podcast platforms at SuperCoach Insider.
I'm going to have to move my window because Chris keeps jumping around like a bloody llama.
What I do.
I feel like we're almost like Dr. Supercoach at the moment, calling in, getting special guests, mate. You know what?
Yeah, it could be something that we incorporate more in the future, especially if I do keep traveling. So, this might be something of the norm moving forward. Who knows?
Or maybe, but I say it's lovely to see your beautiful face. Okay, Chris, interesting week of Supercoach. I'm going to shoot across to you, mate. You know what? Being the host today, I'm actually going to be generous. And so, Chris, how did you fare this week? Tell the kind people.
I'll tell you that I definitely beat you this week. But
not hard this week.
No, but I went all right. I didn't go fantastic. The benefit to me this week is I didn't have Fife. So that sort of leveled the playing field because I'm still running with one rookie on field. So that rookie for me this week was, of course, Dylan Clark, and most people ran with Dylan Clark over Fife. So for me, it just made an even playing field. I also had Hearn as well, but I did manage to get lucky in that department. I had Chris Burgess has been sitting on my palm.
So lucky.
Yeah, and he literally scored 1 point less than Logue. So most people were getting Logue to cover him. I got lucky that I had Burgess there, which meant that I had a grand total score of 23.57. I won 7 of 9, I think. No, let me have a look here. No, I only won 5 of 9 league games, unfortunately.
7 of 9, just blowing it up.
Yeah, exactly right.
You're right.
And I did increase my rank, but only by 1,100. So I thought I would actually go up a little bit more.
You were upset.
I was close to 12. 1,184 rank change up. Which leaves me at 14,449 after going back down another 3K last week. So it's been a bit of a yo-yo back end to the season after I hoped that I was going to come storming home. And I'm sort of hesitant right now to really make any more changes to my team given the amount of ridiculous injuries that we've had in the last few weeks.
Can I
it
say,
just seems
Chris?
to be getting worse and worse. Yeah, mate. You can say whatever you want.
What? Thank you. You know what's even better doing microphone like this, Chris, is that when I talk, you actually shut up because you actually can't hear anything else. Lovely segue, though, on the yo-yo, because this week I brought in Elliot Yo, and may I say, the first 3 quarters, I was literally in so much anxiety. I'm like, why did I do it? Like the one time, you know how much I'm a hater of Yo. This week, I was like, he's such a good option. He's been performing well. He's in not many teams. This could be my point of difference that I need. First 3 quarters on absolutely nothing. And I tweeted out Chizo because I mentioned a pistol, and Chizo talking about Toby Green. I was like, who do you think's more like dangerous? Anxious to watch? Are you more anxious to watch Toby Green or Elliot Yo? And all the boys were like, hands down, Toby Green.
Yo doesn't really perform in blowouts. So early on, when they were dominating the game, he just wasn't performing. And then when they started winning, Elliot Yo was like, yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah.
So. It's a strange dynamic. He definitely performs better in closer situations.
So I'm going to flick across to my team now, Chris, and get rid of your face. Okay, so season rank. So I actually did have Hearn. There you are. You're actually in the top right-hand corner having a sip of water. Isn't that lovely? I wonder if I can blow you up a little bit.
Here I was, just thinking I could get away with having a little bit of a swig of water.
Yeah, you get more TV time.
I only realised I didn't have a beer. I was like, you're like, I'm just going to have a beer. And I'm like, where's my beer?
Yes. So I did have my first donut for the year. I brought in Elliot Yo, and I could have gotten away with it. I didn't have any cover, and the worst part was it was a Sunday game. Hearn was a laid out. Anarchy. I had a look, and literally, if they had have told me earlier, I could have brought in Stewart or someone, which wouldn't have netted me that many points based on how poorly Stewart did. But all I had, literally, looked through all the options. I had like JJ Johannesson. That was probably the only guy I could have brought in, and he's averaging 85. Horrible.
Yeah,
No, not worth it, because I'm like, okay, 15 points per game for the next, 6 games or 5 games or whatever. Yeah, Hearn's probably going to outscore JJ in the long run anyway, plus it's burning a trade. So in the end, I was like, right, let's just cop a donut, move on. I was a bit worried, though, because I did have Fife out. Bontempelli was under a cloud, so I was getting ready to trade Bontempelli for, have a guess.
I was really hoping Bont got...
have a guess who I was going to trade Bontempelli for if he was out.
Midfielder, I have no idea.
I was going to trade in Marshall. Sorry. Marshall was going to be my man if Bontempelli went out. I was going to throw Dunkley forward. I was going to put Marshall in my side. Luckily, Bontempelli played, so Ben Ashton doesn't get to have that victory lap on me. But look, overall did pretty well. I was actually expecting to slide quite a lot. I mean, Bontempelli didn't do too well. I was lucky that a few of my defenders did quite well. Didn't win any of my leagues, I believe. Where is it? Records. I did so bad this week. Yeah, it was just horrible. So most of the leagues I'm still ranked first or second, which is good. But yeah, ranked 421 now overall. So I did slide another 177 places. However, I've still got 4 trades up my sleeve. So I feel like I'm doing not too bad. I'm definitely making trades this week to really secure up my side a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much where it sits. I thought I was going to slide outside 500, but I'm still right up in contention. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the benefit of the players that have actually gone out. Most people in the top 1,000 have all of them. You know, they all would have Fife, Hearn, and likely have Bont as well. So that's probably why you didn't really slide down too much, because most of the people around you all have the same players. So where you probably unfortunately got hit is the fact that it was a donut not having Logue or not having like an actual playing rookie in defence.
Yes.
That's probably the only way you really got hurt. Those extra, it'd be surprising to have a look. Those extra 55 points, where would you be sitting if you had an extra 55? And it's probably going to be somewhere around where you started the round, I reckon.
Or if I had a different premium instead of Fife, which would have been... Maybe Matt Crouch is starting to catch up on Fife's points. Maybe it's only 200 points behind him. You know what's great about this? I can see your eyes roll. I wouldn't be able to see that next to you. That's hilarious.
Dude, honestly, Matt Crouch is done for me. I'm never having him in a Supercoach side ever again. Ever again. I'm completely done with Matt Crouch now in fantasy football. He will never, ever make his way into another Supercoach Insider Chris team. Ever.
Fair enough.
Just calling it now. He's on my burn list. And I'm also considering, I'm very, very close to moving Canelio and Josh Kelly to that list as well. Both of those guys have traded in and out twice the past 2 years. There's like the Tom Rockcliffe syndrome, where every year they're getting injured, and every year I'm going to have to burn trades to get them out of your team, and they just cost you points at the end of the day. So looking at that for next year, that not starting those guys.
Yep.
See how we go.
But yeah, you didn't start Fife this year. So let's move into the rounds then. Starting off.
That hasn't necessarily not been a bad choice, because I don't think he's going to play this week.
I think he will. He's already down. He's pretty much locked in, mate. Check it.
Oh,
check out your resources.
I know it's a test, but yeah, they want him to play. But whether or not he does play is a different story.
We'll get into that.
So
Adelaide versus Essendon, Chris. What are your thoughts, my friend?
Look, to be honest, it was a bit crazy with Brodie Smith. I
regret dropping him now.
He's had a complete role change though.
Yeah,
he's actually playing through the midfield and up to a wing, so he's moved up further up the ground. So. He's kicking a lot of goals as well, and from outside 50, which is helping. He actually could have scored way more, to be honest, in this game, because he did a lot of inside 50s that turned into direct clangers. Had he not have done that, you would have seen, because in the first half, his scoring wasn't great at all. He was lucky to be where he was, because I think he had 17 disposals in the first half and maybe 5 or 6 clangers.
Chris, I do believe I know that issue. I did seek clarification from the club this week. Apparently, he's been training with Brad Crouch. Which is why he's been butchering the ball inside 50.
Absolutely, that makes more sense now.
Yeah, you'd be surprised what 2 weeks of training with Brad Crouch can do for you.
Well, at least he kicks the ball long, unlike...
That's why he's got that midfield role. He's trying to get it longer to Jenkins so they can go over Tex Walker.
This makes sense. Makes sense. Skip the guy that's actually going to kick the goal.
Yeah, you've got to go over the Spud Farm and get to the gold.
To be completely honest, Brodie Smith was the biggest highlight of that game. But yeah, Matt Crouch, man, every time he had like 32 disposals for a 90 or something, didn't he? How many disposals did he have? It was stupid. So, I just can't stand watching him play because he gets an uncontested mark on the wing, short little 25-meter chip pass that usually hits the target, but they're just not worth any points Supercoach wise. He's not doesn't have clearances in the same effect that, say, Patrick Cripps does, where it's a hard ball get clearance. He usually gets a cheap little possession out of the clearance from someone else and then either fires it and then turns it over, or another little handball out to someone else. It's completely... Watching him play is actually just really frustrating the hell out of me now. Probably a little bit like anyone who owns Rory Laird.
Oh, mate, don't even bring me up. So here's a little fun fact. I might have actually hit record, but not actually hit record. So this will be very interesting when we get to the end of it. So, well, it says it's here, and I'm trying to look for drop frames and everything else. It says 0 drop frames, and I don't actually know if I'm recording. So there you go.
Well, it'll be a little red button in the bottom right. So
there's a red button that says record, but I don't see anything else. It says end stream though, so I think we're good. No, I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know.
No one knows what you're doing.
No one knows, but I'm provocative. So look, worst case scenario, people can just watch it back on Twitch, where they should be to begin with. So let's just move on from there. But yeah, Brodie Smith. I could have brought Brodie Smith back in for Dersma, which would have been stupid. I should have just got rid of Dersma in the first place. If only I couldn't afford Hearn, I would have kept Smith over Dersma. And then I couldn't afford Whitfield, so I had to get Laird because I couldn't get Max Gawn otherwise. So literally 5k has been the bane of my existence twice. And it's cost me twice because I kept Dersma over Smith, and then I had to make that decision, and I couldn't get Whitfield. I had to go for someone else, and stupid me chose Laird because he's consistent and he doesn't get injured, and he's been horrible. So bad. Ridiculous.
He's just not getting the disposal he did last year at the end of the day. That's his biggest issue, is that the only way that he scored last year was getting 40 disposals consistently, and he's just not getting that amount of the ball.
No, and even when they...
That could be coaching, it could be the way that they play, but he's just not getting the pill as much as he was. And on the... Oh, nice of the Wild Jack, I respect that. On the flip side of the coin, on the Essendon side of things, I actually traded in Zach Merritt. So Zach Merritt was my Cornelio trade this week. Pretty happy with it now, but at halftime when he was on 36, I was looking at the scores going, shit, I've made a mistake. So,
and you told me you were going Zorko. You spoke up Zorko so hard, and you pulled it. You didn't do it for cash reasons, I guess.
Yeah, well, by trading to Merritt, it means that I've got 2 trades left at 92k, which means if I get any sort of injury, I can sideways to pretty much anyone because I've got 100k sitting there.
No, I'm not upset, Chris. I respect you more going Merritt than Zorko. So, and I love the Zorko.
I was just joshing with you, but yeah, no. So, look, Essendon played fairly well, but realistically, Adelaide should have won the game. To be completely honest, they just threw it away. And stupid turnovers in dumb positions on the ground. It just cost them really big. So
you really have to back in though. Essendon's belief is just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, that's pretty much the main thing to take out of this game is that positional change for for Smitty. Brodie Smith, so if you still have him, definitely be licking your chops because that is a really good move there. It's going to be interesting. So Dylan Clark, though, holding people in good faith, got a 77, and he is the perfect M9 cover at this point in time. If you can hold him, or maybe even a Setterfield for that swing, these guys, if you can afford to hold them,
key.
Just for those one weekers, like for a Fife, or if someone just gets a bit tight, just for the weakers.
If you're low on trades, I don't think you can afford to get rid of Dylan Clark. I could upgrade. Then I would have 0 trades and I'd have a full premium team, but I would have to upgrade Dylan Clark.
Yeah, correct.
I could actually go Clark and Haitley to Hill and like a Mitch Duncan or similar, like 510k or something. But if I get an injury, I then have to play Bewley on field or Hill on field. Whereas Dylan Clark is that extra security. He's got the potential to score close to 100. He's been very, very consistent and he's getting really good roles in the team. So I actually feel that it's probably going to be more beneficial to hold on to Clark and play him for the next few weeks as opposed to the other way around. So
if only you held on to Walsh and then you could upgrade a Dylan Clark or something, that would have been nice. Would have been nice. Yeah, so pretty much after that though, Richmond and Port Adelaide, which is interesting. Richmond are starting to look like a big force getting all their big boys back. Jack Riewoldt must be just loving life now that Tom Lynch is actually getting some form. He's had, 17 weeks, 18 weeks of preseason, finally getting some games. He played...
week preseason.
He played big, though. He was literally... You see him hit some of those packs, though. He just bulldozed. Absolutely just smashed through people, running with intent. And that was the biggest change with Tom Lynch. Getting more possessions. He only kicked slightly more goals, like average 3 goals a game for the last couple. But his disposals have gone up. The amount of ground he's covering's gone up. Riewolt's just loving life because, you're going to take the big giant, aren't you, first? The big contested grab. So Riewolt's just getting a free run.
Agreed. And he's 5th in the Coleman. He's kicked 40 goals this year.
Tom Lynch, 40 goals.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's good from being underdone. Like, has to be good.
Not bad at all. He's only 2 behind Tom Hawkins, who's had a great year. 3 behind Jack Darling, who, by all reports, has had a terrible year.
Yeah.
And 6 behind Ben Brown in 2nd spot. The only one that's really out of the pack, of course, because Collingwood loves playing spuds into fawn is obviously Jeremy Cameron.
we'll get to him in just a second, but. Look, Hurley repaying the faith with those owners with a 111. Dusty actually not too bad, 30 disposals, 1 goal. Just efficiency again though with Dusty, only 104 points in a win. So it looks like Classic Richmond's actually starting to come back into the fold where they're really sharing their points and showing the load. There's no too many standouts though, like a lot of guys in the 80s and 90s for SuperCoach. I think they're actually starting to look dangerous and I don't like it, Chris. I don't know how you feel. Richmond's starting to peak at the right time, and Collingwood is starting to drop at the wrong time. Should you say?
Can you see what I'm... boy for a few years, so I'm okay with it. No, I can see.
You don't have your glasses on, Chris. How's your vision?
It's not fantastic. I'll be honest. But you are in a small box in the corner, but I can see the West Coast.
Well, you know what else was a small box in the corner? Is Dom Sheed, and he kicked that box from that corner, mate. Straight through the middle. Let me tell you.
You know who we played and beat the shit out of the week before was Richmond, and that's this week. So I do look forward to Friday night just so we can put a little bit more icing on that cake and make them eat a little bit more humble pie. But I actually do think that Collingwood will win this week. I think there's something about the matchup that just doesn't suit Richmond when they play Collingwood, and for some reason we actually end up playing well against the Richmond team. So I'll see. Be interested to see how that works out this week, considering that we're probably on our last legs with injuries.
You play well against Richmond because you get that.
Someone who's been really, really good this year, Brandon Ellis, has been absolutely fantastic for most of the year, especially from a draft-related option.
Dumping him in a keeper
league. In most leagues, he ended up in getting onto the waiver wire early, and people who were luckily in the first position in the waiver got some really nice choices early with Brandon Ellis. So he's been really good this year.
Hey, Chris.
He's averaged 90.
Imagine dropping Ellis in a keeper league and the draft league and letting me pick them up twice.
Did that actually happen?
That actually happened. That is you. Very short vision. So across the Port Adelaide though, Boak again fairly consistent. If they didn't get beaten so comprehensively, like Boak was definitely one of the top scorers for Port the whole day. It's just they got absolutely smashed. Their defense was so undersized, just completely out of their depth. It was like under 16s playing under 12s in the forward versus defense. They battled hard, but the height.
Yeah. This week, so Boak didn't train today, but word is that he will be playing this week and was just managed today with his training load. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. It looks like he's going to play, but there is some sort of worry there about Boak. The advice is that he will play, so we'll see how that goes. Outside of that, I mean, there's so many players here that probably get a mention. Another thing that helped me out this week was a lot of people who had Robbie Gray, and he turned out his first stud score in a while with a 60.
Yeah.
I'm glad that happened too. So that really impacted some players out there. People who still held on to who got Lysette and Westhoff. Solid scores without being fantastic. You take that as an F6. If you really were desperate, 85 and 81 respectively. They just got beaten all over the park, and they were lucky to be within 6 goals, to be completely honest.
I'll tell you who's been on the stupid run though is Darcy Byrne-Jones.
He has.
Absolutely stupid, and this is someone I probably didn't give enough respect to, but from round 9, 101, 115, 90, 84, 80, 117, 121, 130, and then an 87. And I'll tell you what, if Port actually played a bit better, he probably would have actually been up there because him and Boak were pretty well topping the scores for Port. Interestingly enough, though, they have GWS, Essendon, Sydney North, and Freo to come it's actually not a bad draw for Port Adelaide to come. So, yeah, GWS will be a hard one, but Essendon, Sydney, North and Fremantle, they can all leak points on any given day. He's actually not a bad little sneaky option. I mean, when you look at his price, what is he? He's 525,000. I would take Whitfield hands down over him because of that price difference, but his run lately has been good, and he's probably been a shining light. Apart from all the young guys from Port Adelaide, and apart from Boken and Lysette really standing up, Darcy Byrne-Jones has actually, for me, been one of the standout performers this year.
I actually put him in the top 3 replacements for Hearn if you can afford to trade him this week. So I do think that he's an option if you already have Whitfield, which a lot of people already do. And the other one probably sitting in front of him is Dane Rampy, which you must love a lot. Hey?
I don't even know why. Why isn't he fallen off a cliff already?
Show us your Rampy.
Okay, so that's been my call. Rampy just keeps chipping away. Mind you, Sydney have had a pretty easy run the last few.
Yeah,
put him on some hard matchups though. Put him on some hard matchups, and Rampy will get you a 40. It's gonna happen. Has to happen. If not, I'm gonna hate life.
I will put money on the fact that he does not go 40 or below for the rest,
in the
49 or below.
45? Give me 45.
For the rest of the year. What odds are you gonna show us your odds?
It has to be 5 to 1 or something, surely. 1 to 1? 1 to 1. It's good value. It's good value.
It's value.
What annoys me more is that Ben Ashton has been so lucky this year with Hooley he got early. I was like, no way in hell. No way Hooley keeps going. Yeah, Marshall gets Marshall very early, kills it for the year. Then he goes and gets in Rampy after 2 big games. He brings in Rampy and he's arsing it. Absolutely arsing it, and it's just
Taranto. Now that's a godsend pick as well. Look, to be fair,
well, Taranto's the Bradbury of GWS.
He literally is. That is the best definition of Taranto I've ever heard.
Everyone falls over in front of him. Yes, he's been great, but come on, everyone falls over in front of him, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, look, I'm the lone wolf in this midfield, and I'm just going to rack up the pill.
Show us your lone wolf.
Show us your lone wolf.
On my back, lone wolf.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's enough about that game, pretty much.
Over to another win from Carlton.
Yes, also quickly as well, Hartlett only getting a 51, so awesome work for those that brought him in.
Yeah, terrible pick, really, let's be fair.
Shows your sarcasm. But yeah, Carlton, and this is another one that annoyed me. I made a bad captain call this week, Chris, and you are well aware. But all week I had Cripps into Grundy. I was talking so much smack, A, because I thought it would be fun, and B, I like to talk a lot of smack. I was saying Cripps into...
You barely noticed it.
Yeah, you can barely notice it. Cripps into Grundy. I was like, it's the easiest thing ever. And everyone's like, no, Grundy into Gawn or Grundy into McRae. And I was like, no. I was like, Cripps into Grundy, if not, maybe McRae. And I was like, giving everyone so much crap. I was like, okay, well, good luck turning down that 180 or whatever, because he averaged 171 for the last 2 rounds against Gold Coast. So I was like, 90% of the time, it's going to happen. 60% of the time, it's going to happen. And what happens? He highly underperforms, highly underscores, just
apparently he rolled his ankle or something in the first quarter.
Yeah.
That's what I heard, and I didn't see it because I wasn't watching the game. But I
was just
counting. I don't
think
there's any risk of missing, but yeah.
I didn't watch enough of it, Chris. I was too busy counting my tears. So yeah, it was definitely up there. And as a really rash last-minute decision, I was like, oh my god, Gawn's playing an undersized ruck essentially over in Darwin, so I was like, he should score well, even though he's coming a bit underdone. Grundy is versing 2 rucks, and they're going to target him. Mumford's going to bash him up. He's playing away from home. So literally 10 minutes or so before the game, I changed my captain off Grundy. And I hated life so bad. Rule number 1.
Rule number 1. Never discount Grundy.
Rule number 1, always start with Grundy for the next 5 years. Rule number 2, always VC or C Grundy. Rule number 3, never change your VC and never doubt Grundy. And it's a simple life motto. I think we're going to have to start this trend.
I do believe that. Look, in terms of Carlton, they've had some role changes that we've noticed in the last few weeks, which has really improved scoring. So Ed Kerr now with a 116 is probably the highlight of that. I won't be even looking at him. In fact, I do warn people against him because he's also the guy. Whilst he's got yeah, exactly right. If they need to lock someone down, he's going to be that guy.
Yeah, and especially when you verse Gold Coast. I mean, who's he going to try and lock down? Yeah,
well, exactly right. But if you have a look at his last 4 weeks have been absolutely fantastic. But this isn't a new thing for Ed Kerr now. Last year, as you know, I brought him in. He was averaging 111 over the first 11 rounds of the season. I brought him in. He averaged 85 in the back end of the year.
Yeah.
So there's every chance that he just drops off a cliff. So
he'd be perfect for draft leagues, though, particularly for ones where he was underperforming. He was playing forward. And here's the stupid thing, though. Murphy was playing forward. Kernow was playing forward. They're playing him out of the positions. Yeah, you're older. Let's get some young guys in there. And the young guys were getting flogged. They're getting exposure, but they're getting flogged. New coach comes in and saying, well, regardless of your age, this is... Yeah.
Well, it's for two reasons. First of all, it's to save the coach, because the coach wants to make an impression, right? So he doesn't want to develop kids. He's not going to develop kids. He just wants to get some wins on the board, right?
And Bolton just falling on his own sword, just...
Exactly right. So, puts his best midfield mix in there, which is Cripps, Kernow, and Murphy. They're now the starting three mids. Kernow's gone 107, 111, 117, 116 the last four. And even before that, he had a 128 against Brisbane and then a really bad drop of 39 against the Bulldogs.
What's his price, Chris? Kernow, $4.92. Oh, he's too expensive. Unlucky.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Too expensive.
I would say, look, buyer beware. I would never, because I've been burnt by him. But if you're looking for an option under 500k, he's around in the mix. He's somewhere in that mix. So I wouldn't write him completely off.
I'd take Merritt any day, though. They're about the same price.
Some other cheap options you could have a look at. Sam Petrevski-Seaton, I know you love hearing that name. He's actually moved to the half-back line. So
yeah, he's actually looked really good at half-back. So I would not be surprised if he plays another 5 rounds there. If he racks up enough of it, because he was forward earlier. So it would be hilarious because he started... Here's the funny thing. It's got to mess him up, surely, because he started in that midfield and on the wing, right? Did pretty well. Then they moved him forward. Now they moved him to defence. I mean, literally, this guy's like a Hershey's Kiss. He does it all. So I'm wondering, though, probably a lot forward, but if he racks up 100% time in defence for the, say, 7-round sample, he could actually push himself up to that, 25, 30%, 30%, 35% that they need. So
yes. Well, I don't
35%.
know.
It'd be interesting.
I'm quite confident that he won't be defend next year. I think he'll still be a forward.
Yeah.
But I think playing in defence, I think he can average between 90 to 100 next year. And so it's one to keep on your radar for next year, because I think he'll be cheap enough. He's currently averaging 83 points per game, or maybe slightly more.
What's the line you took, Chris? Remind the people.
92.
No, 91.5, but yeah.
91.5. But that was from when he actually got picked, right? So I've got...
That was from when he was doing well, and you were going to bring him in your side, and I gave you so much shit.
He's averaging 84, but I honestly believe that he's going to be... he's got a breakout potential for next year. Someone that I've definitely circled is if he gets forward mid and is playing defence, a little bit like Caleb Daniel, he could get really, really good consistency. He's got great decision-making skills. He's got a good kick on him. Very accurate, short kicking. I can see that role being moulded around him. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
This could be Kate Simpson's last year.
I think he's cooked. He's doing the team thing, but he's just it's not Kate Simpson-ish. It's the worst thing. Like he's contributing, but he's not standing out anymore.
Well, he's good enough to be in there 22, but that's not saying much, is it?
No. I mean, Dale Thomas is in there 22, and that's not saying much either. So,
having said that, you did get Doherty back hopefully next year. Yeah, he'll come in and change things up as well.
I think he'll make way. I think Simpson will take on more of a coaching role. I think he's so invaluable and he's a legend, so I don't want to down talk him at all. But he's not standing out, and he's just filling that role, and he's just kind of he's going missing now. Where you don't even realize that he's playing some of the time, which. And I don't know if they can do a Brisbane, but I think they can probably do, Bulldogs, where they are going close to the 8 from where they are this year. I reckon that the next year they might go somewhere like 9 to 12, Carlton, if they get the right coach. Yeah, and they have good time with injury. They need the right structure for sure. They need the right structure. One person I do want to touch on is Setterfield. I think he's actually been unleashed a little bit more as well, and I think he had that bit of an injury issue earlier. He started slow, had a couple good games. Had a couple of absolute stinkers, but let me bring him up. But he's actually been really consistent of late, and by consistent, I don't mean he's been setting the world on light. But when you look for Setterfield, 324k, so at least he's made good amount of money for those that have kept him. When you go through it though, let's have a look. So he's actually been really good for say the last 7 rounds. You go 64, 67, 62, 72, 74, 70, 61. Which is a low of 61 in 7 rounds. That's actually not bad for a guy that can play forward and midfield. Again, if you're getting low on trades. He's playing every game. He's in their best 22. He's got that dual flexibility, which is perfect for some rounds. I'm actually waiting for the time where he actually pulls it out because there's been at least, and I watch him quite closely with his scoring, there's been at least 3 or 4 times he's been on like 50 at halftime.
Yep.
I think it was a couple games ago, maybe against Sydney. He was on like 56 or something at halftime. I was like, yes, this is going to be the game. And then he ends up with 70. And I'm like, FN Setterfield just goes disappearing for a quarter and a half and does nothing. Absolute nothing. Well,
it's because he's got major minutes in the forward line, which of course fluctuates his score. But
especially with Cullen.
The good thing is with when he had the role he's playing is he usually gets a mismatch in the forward line. So he's much taller and much bigger than the guys he's usually playing on, which means, strength-wise and contested marking, he can score quite well in bunches if he gets the right opportunity. So, it's more of a next-year pick. I wouldn't be looking at him anything this year, but he's done justice for those that have held on to him because he's always just going to be around. He's in the best 22. He's going to be scoring some points on your field. He might be a warm body. He also provides that mid-forward swing, so it hasn't been too terrible. And looking over to the Gold Coast side of things, someone I've been super impressed with basically most of the year is Dan McPherson. So another 105 this week. He's averaging 85 on the season as a forward, which if you told me that at the start of the season, I would have grabbed it in draft with both hands and never let go. But look at his scoring since round 8 is 109, 87, 109, 119, 86, 73, 97, 94, 79, 105. So he's had one score at 73 is his lowest, and everything else has been pretty much between 79 and 119. Very, very consistent. He's obviously been playing a lot through midfield, so I don't know if he's going to be able to get forward status next year. But if he does, he could be a really good, cheap, 350 to 400k forward mid player that you'd be able to bank in, and I think he might even go that sort of 95 average next year. So
you're right.
Keep an eye on Dan McPherson.
Yeah, I think he's been very impressive, and when it comes down to it, I mean, the Bulldogs passed on him as a father-son, and he was super cheap. He did well that year. I think he had an injury the time he was 102k. But I actually really like with how they're doing all this rookie sort of work at the moment. Even Gibbons now. I mean, who would have thought Gibbons is still performing at that high elite level? Who would have thought Stack would have come in? And he's been killing it as well. Like, he is now so embedded into that best 22 that they're like, oh, okay, so there's no real room in the defensive line, so you know what, we're going to put you forward. And then he gets up, gets a specky, kicks some goals. So versatile.
He's played really well in the forward line, to be completely honest. Exactly what they need. Also, Will Brodie, keep an eye out for your keeper leagues. So that guy, I tell you what, he knows how to rack up the pill.
Is he in your team, is he, Chris? Because you're just talking him up.
He is. I've actually...
Oh, I knew it! You talked him up! You talked him up!
I love it. Dude, I've actually gone I did have made finals, but for the last couple of days, I've actually just traded another couple of guys. I'm going super young in my keeper league to try and get some trade buffer for the end of the year. I've got a lot of guys that have breakout potential. Yeah, so
you can only take 12, mate, and I don't have much room. Hey, I'm already sitting on about 14 to 15 people, and I'm going to have to start trading or skimming, basically.
I've got some really good trade potential that I'm going to float and dangle in front of everyone for some draft picks early next year.
Also, for those playing draft and for keeper leagues particularly, now is a good time to trade for those like myself and Chris who have a plethora of youth. You could then go, okay, so you're going young. Who are the experienced people in your side, for instance, or vice versa? It's a really good time to trade. So those that are in the window, the top 4, it's probably a good thing if you trade out someone that's on the fringe, maybe even like a Parish or someone or other, trying to get that person that can play the next 2 or 3 years but win you this year. It's all about the wins. So, it's definitely looking at that sort of market when it comes to that. So,
speaking of young guys that have an abundance of talent, over to the GWS and Collingwood game, Keenor continues to impress, or IQ, or Quaynor, or however you pronounce it, and I'm really not sure on how that is. But he continues to impress, and I think he's going to be a very, very good SuperCoach player down the track. Uses the ball beautifully, can take an intercept grab, probably just needs a little bit of work in terms of reading the actual ball in flight, because he looks like he sort of rushes to the ball and then it might go over his head sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that comes with experience though too, because the game's a bit quicker. The game's a bit quicker, so you need to decide quicker, you need to get there quicker. Whereas he's kind of like in seconds, or when he's younger, he's like, I can get there. Next minute, the ball's like, oh crap, now I'm in no man's land, or I'm not there, I'm there a bit late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't help him that he's been playing like last weekend against GWS. He was playing sometimes against Jeremy Cameron. They were so short down back that they like, it was just ridiculous.
Beg to differ, Chris. It doesn't help him that he's playing for Collingwood. Is the big issue. Meanwhile, I don't think I've ever I don't know what makes me happier. Seeing Brisbane sitting second on the ladder above Collingwood, or watching Collingwood get spanked by 50 points in the first quarter. It's a real big toss-up. Absolute big toss-up. Can I segue this?
It was a gamble that did not pay off, and this is largely their coaching fault, in my opinion. Now, they went the route of most teams go with a smaller defence line to try and beat the defence in the spread, and they back their guys in to create a contest at the fall of the ball, which has been happening in modern football for the past 2 to 3 years. We got absolutely spanked aerially. The delivery was obviously really, really good, but Finlayson, Himmelberg, and Cameron were just absolutely dominating our tall defenders.
Oh.
The only one that really was any good was Roughhead, but what they really did well was their ruckman, which was usually either Dawson Simpson or Shane Mumford, was taking Roughhead out of the play to impact the contest. So he wasn't able to get to the contest to spoil the ball, which would bring Collingwood Smalls into the game. That wasn't happening because they were dragging him out of the play. So they did a really fantastic...
I'm pretty sure it was like Cameron 3 goals, Finlayson 3 goals, and Himmelberg like 2 goals or something crazy. Speaking of tough questions and stuff, Chris, and segueing into this, it's funny because we had a tough question asked this week from, I think it was Swizz or Matt, one of the two guys that we in constant contact with. So it was basically from the Scott Thompson ruptured testicle and the Impey ACL. And Impey's been awesome for Hawks this year and probably underrated, to be honest. But the question is, if you're an AFL player, would you rather rupture an ACL or rupture a testicle? And it really divided people, and there's quite a few people saying, oh, no, I'd rather rupture my ACL. I'm like, yeah, but now you're out for 12 months, whereas a testicle's like 5 days of excruciating pain, but you could play in a week or two. And but it still divided a lot of people, so we put it out on the poll, we put it out online, and it's funny enough... On the line, yeah, right. And we put it out on the line, and it actually came back, combined between Twitter and Facebook, we're looking at 600 votes, essentially, and 53% said, take my left nut. So, it's still a very, very close debate, and I think it was very worthy of...
See, I already have a busted ACL, so I'm good. Let's do this.
But yeah, so Chris, Collingwood, where did it all fall down, my friend?
Well, as I said, the forward line was the absolute... their forward line, they absolutely killed us. Our forward line wasn't terrible, but... the biggest thing that's happened to us this year, 100%, is Jaden Stevenson. He's completely changed our forward mix. We haven't been the same team since he left. And the reason is, now he was usually that one out over the back. The defences had to change their structure to be able to compensate for that. But we haven't also, complementing to that, we haven't had Jamie Elliott. We also haven't had Josh Thomas. Those were the other two that had played with him predominantly through that. And because of our loss of Dane Beams and also Taylor Adams to a lesser extent, we're now playing DeGoey around the ball, so we don't have our forward mix. Our forwards line is completely shattered.
Yeah, all over $35 in betting or something, was it? 24, 35?
Oh, yeah, over 3 bets.
Well, what is your take on the... you know what, stuff it. We're not going to go into all that publicity. It's already media overhyped.
It's done.
Yeah,
Brody Grundy's a jet. He actually got...
Yeah,
his 157, that should have been a 180. It was closer. It could have been a 200, to be honest. But a lot of his disposals were turnovers. So even... first possessions from the clearance, handball, direct clang, a turnover. Whereas if they had hit the target, it's just points instead of getting negative points. So
you know what's funny, Chris? When you combine, so Mumford and Simpson combined, they had 14 disposals and 38 hitouts. 14 and 38. Grundy had 31 and 48.
Yeah.
So he had the same amount of hitouts. He had the same amount of hitouts as two people. And he had more than double the disposals.
However, their role in keeping Roughhead out of the play was well worth the experiment that they did. So, again, that's just a testament to really good coaching from Leon Cameron and the inability of Collingwood to adjust.
Yeah.
Again, Darcy Moore out does impact that highly.
Oh, huge.
Can't believe they still haven't got Tyson Goldsack in, which doesn't make sense to me. But
this week it is a possibility, apparently. But I actually think Darcy Moore being out... could actually be a part of the reason that Howe actually performed quite well as well. I think, as we spoke earlier, Darcy Moore in, Howe's role was a bit different.
Also, those 2 hangers that he took weren't too bad either.
Yeah, right. But he then becomes more of that sort of, okay, so he can then use his mark and leap and be a little bit more free to play the way he usually plays, whereas before I think he was a bit more role dependent. So it's not surprising that Howe, scored a 90, which is probably one of his better scores in the last 3 months. Could be, I don't even know how cheap he is, but I'm going to have a look at that in a second, where Treloar has been killing it. Getting so much of the ball.
This year.
Very consistent, getting so much of the ball, has not only dropped below 100 4 times. And after that, he's had 6 in a row over a ton, so it's not, his ceiling isn't as big as it's been previously. He's had one score of 150, but everything else, basically, typical Treloar, getting so much of the pill but butchering it. So,
a couple of things that we need to address, though, from this game on the GWS side of things. There was quite a few different role changes. So, this is obviously part of Josh Kelly not being there and also Taranto not being there.
Chris.
So not Taranto, Canelio.
Chris, the people would like to hear Treloar's scores for the last 6 weeks first.
Will they really?
Yeah.
I don't think they did. Can we get a shout out in the chat?
104, 117, 136, 100, 125 and 116. The 4 times he's gone under 100 is 83, 86, 68 and 93. So really only 1 score below the 80. I think he's a great option. And if he wasn't actually quite highly priced, he's 563k, but if you can afford it, I think he's a great option. Only in 18% of sides. He's very consistent. If you do still need to replace someone, if someone goes down, 5 doesn't get up, etc., I think, Treloar is actually a really good option. So there you go. Sorry, Chris. Go for the changes.
I don't mind him. He obviously usually finishes with a flurry as well. So Whitfield obviously played a lot more behind the ball for 2 reasons. First of all, Zach Williams was played on the ball. So he actually played in and around the ball this week at clearances, at centre stoppages. He actually should have scored more again, but he turned the ball over something chronic. So he had 26 disposals. But when I say turn the ball over, a lot of them were from direct clearances. So he'd clear the ball without looking. So usually when Zach Williams uses the ball, it's very good because he's in open space. He's running and carrying, and he's beautiful by foot. But those snaps, around his shoulder, etc., they were getting turned over. So I wouldn't, even though he got 103, it could have been much, much higher. It could have been 120 plus easily had he had kicked accurately. Had quite a few tackles, which was good. Surprisingly, of course, or unsurprisingly, we should say, that led to a Taranto good score. Taranto, again, should have been a 140 this week, but he butchered the football again, and that seems to be his massive linchpin. At 3/4 time, he already had 11 tackles for the game, and he ended on 13. So that's what drove his score up. He was really, really sucking with ball in hand and turning over the ball, ineffective disposal. So his massive Achilles heel is just his disposal. He just can't seem to get that right. But if he did, he would be an absolute jet, especially as the number 1 choice midfielder, or as you like to call him, the Bradbury. Toby Green as well, of course. Started in the centre square, played really well. 112, and I think as long as he can stay on the park and the role's there, he's going to be good until the end of the year.
Yeah, definitely for draft leagues.
Yeah,
100% some people might still have him. So again, look at those matchups, see who you're up against. The big tick of approval for me, and I know it's hard because a lot of draft leagues are next week, but Josh Kelly, if he comes back in, will that change his role? Will he push forward again?
How does the setup?
Or will he stay prominent in that midfield? But one thing's for sure is Haitley can't get a gig.
Not with the way that they're setting up right now. So it'd be interesting to see what happens this week. If Haitley is named, they'll probably play him on the ball. So maybe that pushes Zach Williams back behind the ball. But here's why I don't think it will happen. So the other change was Heater Shaw. So Heater Shaw played more of an intercept role this week than he has in the last few. Scored a 95, which is nice for me, considering our little bet.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know, right? So, yeah, he's actually on track. So Williams moving forward into the midfield then help push Heater up and shift that dynamic.
And what actually, his score again should have been higher, but I think he hit about 6 out of bounds in the full.
Yeah.
So,
did you see his team who was saying, I've played with a lot of great people.
Yeah.
Anyway, did you see all the comments of that? Someone's just like, oh, so yeah, he goes, I don't think I'll get up to the forward line because it'll keep going out in the full.
Yeah. Well, Nerily Meadows said, I think that was her comment, yeah. And yeah, that's exactly right. So he was banging it on the foot and kicking it out in the full quite a lot. So I'm not sure how many clangers he had. Maybe you could check that out. But 95 should have been a 120. So we'll see how that impacts him going forward. There could be a sneaky one in a draft league if you're looking to get a sneaky trade just before the finals. He's had a really
providing everything matches up. So Jeremy Howe, again, another sneaky for draft if he actually does have a favourable draw. 356k. Let me just look up Heater for you. Let me look up Heath Shaw. He's 340k, which is even cheaper. So if you are strapped for cash, he could actually go on a flurry. And GWS do play Port, Sydney Hawks, Bulldogs, and Gold Coast. So it's not exactly like it's a hard finish for them.
Nah. All right, moving on to your boys, the old Lions.
Indeed.
First and foremost, mate, there's a bit of conjecture about that win, eh?
Not really, because they came out and said, yes, that free kick wasn't there. However, McCluggage, and that's one person I was going to say, you know what, a top 3 draft pick that doesn't butcher the ball, Chris? It's Hugh McCluggage. He does not butcher the ball. He weaved in and out of traffic like they were stop cones. It was just, there were markers there. He weaved in and out and went, yep, smacked straight through the goals. And then he followed that up with that free kick where he got in the back more than Pornhub trailer. So it was it was actually a really frustrating game. North Melbourne played so well early on. Their structures were good. They were definitely switched on to play. And Brisbane, they were really reactionary. They weren't doing too well. They were kicking it it's a tale of two halves, because that first half, we're under pressure, we're under the pump, and instead of actually trying to calm it down and use your wits, they were just bombing it out of that defensive line. They weren't even looking. They just bomb it.
That sounds like something Zach Bailey would do.
Sounds like Zach Bailey. Yeah, right. Bailey gave away a free, and I was like, "Who's that? Is that Bailey?" But he actually provided some good options, Bailey, for once.
He's
so
such a stud.
I'm starting to have faith, but they just rushed it. They kicked it without even looking, and it was just turning over, coming back in, and it was frustrating to watch, to the point where I was like, how are we still in this game? And we couldn't kick straight to save our life. But the second half, particularly the third quarter, everything changed. We started to get some momentum. We started to put pressure on them. And then they started to boot it long back to our wall. So they started to be under the pump. And that's where it really changed. And that last quarter, North started well, and it was a bit of a topsy-turvy sort of affair where you thought, hey, maybe the Lions are finally ahead. And then North would then, I think we got 12 points up. North then kicked a couple of goals. We were then behind. And, look, at the end of the day, the umpiring was pretty... I'm not going to say bad, but it was definitely Brisbane got a lot of free kicks in the third, which were there, but the other ones were, a lot of the key moments throughout the game went to North. And the biggest thing was that they really had a big influence, and the umpires were trying to be seen, they were trying to be heard. At the end of the game, I think from people from both sides were just talking about how pitiful the umpiring was. And yes, that one wasn't there. I also thought the Ben Brown one wasn't there earlier. I didn't see much in that, and I'm glad the AFL actually came out saying they were both wrong, which for me kind of evens it up. Helped shut the North fans up for a little bit, so that was great. So, I think, look, it's just one of those games, and the umpiring was bad, that when Brisbane supporters stopped singing the club song to actually boo the umpires as they're walking off the field, and we won the game. And last note is, the only thing I can't stand is Brisbane supporters perking up, being super fucking cocky, like we have a right.
You mean the bandwagon supporters, the 20,000?
Right. So now we're starting to get 25,000 supporters, and it's against North Melbourne of all people. I mean, it's not Hawthorn or someone that we usually get a crowd for. People are starting to get all jacked up on Mountain Dew and Perky, and then they start ripping on people like, yeah, you suck, free kick, yeah, it's a free kick, deal with it. And I was like, where have you been for the last 10 years? You have not felt my pain. You haven't felt the pain and suffering. You don't deserve to start...
Life as a Brisbane supporter,
You don't deserve to start talking smack like you're a Richmond supporter. It's just... I just don't get it. Hey, be humble in your win.
States, bro.
Be humble. Be humble in your win, and know that the hard times... this is how much of a supporter I am. We are now, basically, according to Champion Data, 100% likely, or 100% locked into finals now. We've got 12 wins. And even I'm still waiting, no, we still might fuck it up. Don't get ahead of yourself, right? Don't get ahead of yourself.
There's still a chance that we go 0-5 and drop out on percentage.
Because I know what can happen. I've seen my boys the last decade. Nothing's for certain. So, anyway, as far as North Melbourne goes, Goldie, for a big man, you watch him, on TV, he looks big anyway, but watching him live, he covers so much ground. He
does.
works
He gets
so
around.
hard, and I'm looking at him, and he should be like a clumsy giraffe or like a heavy guy, but he just moves.
He's great below his knees as well. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I've actually
he's
so I
great
did
above his
some-
knees too.
Yeah, well, true.
His kicking's great though. Like when you watch him,
Between his knees and his hips is really great.
his disposal for a ruckman though is just like it's another level, and his kicking. Anyway, so I was just really impressed with how well he covered ground, and his kicking, as usual, is just phenomenal. So, which you're happy
The
at?
interesting thing, I'm happy because obviously I did the Max Gorn trade to Goldstein, which netted me negative 6 points this week. So it's the first time that from the time I traded him 3 weeks ago that I lost ground. But the interesting thing is at this point in time, if you were to go Max Gorn trade Goldstein back to Max Gorn, you would actually gain 6,000. And you've gained at least 155 points. No, I think it's 170 points or so.
So are you going back, or are you holding steady now?
I can't afford to. If I had the trades, I would. If I had any more of the trades than I have right now, I would 100% trade Goldstein back to Max Gorn.
You've said 100% twice more than me today, Chris.
Oh, sorry. Well, because not only... it was 170k.
Yeah.
So you gained 170k, which is essentially a downgrade option. So there's your trade right there. Plus you've gained 155 points. How do you lose? How can you lose that? So it has been, if you can afford that other trade, it's definitely worth it. It definitely has been worth it. Unfortunately, what it means for me is I've got to try and ride the gauntlet in every single league match that I'm going up into now. It's basically Goldie versus Gorn every single week. So I'm not exactly enjoying that for league purposes, but look, he's on a heater. He's had a 3-round average of... What's his 3-round here?
It's definitely been good.
134 and a 5-round of 126. So he's in really, really good form at the moment. He's got some good fixtures coming up. So I'm not terribly upset, but I can see an 85 around the corner, you know what I mean? So,
yep.
Hating for that ball drop. The other one that's obviously killing me is Jack Zeeble, who for the last 2 weeks has just been very, very poor. 65 this week really impacted me again against, say, Rowan Marshall, who got a 142, or even Dunkley, who went, I think, 120 something. So the two that I don't have, which is
the ever reliable Dunkley. Also, for a side note, Lyons is just absolutely killing it. So just going through his scores now.
Yeah.
Jared Lyons, free for the Lions. He's in 1% of sides, actually. He's in 1,500 teams. He's got a 165. He was everywhere. And what's even worse is one of our mates, Stuart, was versing Chris. And so his average for the year is 94.1. He started off horrible, but 3-round average of 118, 5-round average of 119. He did have a low score against the Giants, which I'm attributing to the fact that he was actually... That's when Cornelio and our boy... can't even think of his name right now, Chris. Kelly. Yeah, so... I think he actually played probably a little bit more accountable, if I'm not mistaken. But if you have a look back, round 10, 109, 127, 74 against Carlton, so maybe he was running with the Crips, 112, 130, 50, 139, and a 165. He's actually been quite consistent. And his ceiling is just showing that his contested ball is just absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And he's 529k. If you want to run the gauntlet and have a real big point of difference for your leagues, I don't mind it because they have a really favourable draw except for their last 2 rounds. So if you need to if you're positioned between 5 and 8 and you really need a left field, I mean, they're playing the Gold Coast soon. They have a really favourable draw again. They got Hawks, they have the Bulldogs, they have Gold Coast. Perfect for the finals series. You could get yourself into that final or semi-final and knock out one of these guys because of a Jared Lyons.
True.
That's enough said. So...
just quickly before we move on from the Lions, how much of a disappointment has Alex Witherden been this year?
Blame Daniel Rich and the rise of Rich.
The rise of Rich, which I agree. I actually re-listened to our top 10 podcast.
Oh, right.
And I was on a plane late last week on Friday afternoon. I had a few skewies and jumped on a plane, listened to our podcast. And
where did I put Dunkley, Chris? It had to be number 2. I think I went really outlandish.
I don't think I didn't get to, there was a 2.5-hour podcast. I didn't get to the forwards. So I only went through rucks, mids,
so it was
defenders.
one of our shorter ones then, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly right. But yeah, so, I tipped Witherden to go 10. You tipped him to go 7.
Yeah.
We both got that one very wrong.
But if you look at how we were right with the kicking out rule, if Witherden did have a kick out friendly role, he would have actually been a lot better this year. But the problem is, Rich has really risen, and to the point where he has had such a good year. A, he's a great Supercoach option. B, he's been great for the side. But any time that it's open, Rich is the one that they're giving it to because he's making good disposals. He's got such a big boot and he's really assessing it well. Do I go short? Do I then switch it 50 metres across the field? Or do I go inside 50? And any time that they're getting it, it's Rich. And at the moment...
He's a better decision maker.
Yeah, and Witherden's just playing a role. So Witherden this year for Supercoach has been horrible. And that's the risk you take with role changes. But
yep.
It doesn't mean I'll rule him out for future years, but probably once Rich has now fallen off a cliff. So
fair enough.
Yeah.
Now moving on to Sydney versus Freo, I did manage to catch the last quarter of this game, and it was a heart stopper. It was absolutely toing and froing the entire time. But I tell you what, I was bloody pissed.
Fremantle Sydney.
Sydney. Two things, right? Games on the line. Who would you rather have a kick goal, Luke Parker or Isaac Heaney?
They're both good though. Heaney? Parker's so good though. Like, I don't know.
Don't get me wrong, Parker's a good player. But do you think he's a better kick at goal than Isaac Heaney?
Well, you go Heaney because he's a natural forward.
So, Heaney is free in the pocket. And the little chip, like 20-metre chip into the pocket, free. This is the kick to win the game. Parker comes over in front of him and intercepts the ball and takes the mark instead of just leaving it to an open Heaney. So Parker literally cut off Heaney 1 metre in front of him to get the mark and a shot deep in the pocket to win the game. He misses the goal, obviously, and they lose the game.
No. You know why they lost the game, Chris? They could have easily got a draw. Easily. There's 3 versus 1, 5 metres out from the goal. Rush it through. They're all falling over each other, and the ball comes out.
They didn't want to draw, you see. They wanted to win the game. They wanted to kick the goal. But having said that as well, there was a massive umpire blunder, and the whole game was pretty bad. Middle of the ground, I can't remember which Freo player grabs the ball, but he picks the ball up. He looks, fakes a handball, ducks, gets tackled and gets wrapped up, and no holding the ball is called. I was absolutely roped. Middle of the ground.
Is that better or worse, Chris, than the Max Gorman just trying to pick up the ball while he's already on his back?
No, I thought it was the most obvious holding the ball decision that I've seen in years. But it was that, you know what it was? It was that exact same as the block on Braden Maynard last year. Like, it's an obvious block in a normal game of football, like where it's not, that decision doesn't cost a game. They're just going to let it go. They're just going to let the game fly. And that's exactly what happened. It could have cost the game. It could have swung the pendulum the other way. Therefore, they just don't call it. The umpires are too scared to make the right call in big moments.
Yeah,
especially
they need to back themselves in. Surely, it's like any other job. It's a high pressure situation. You see it, you call it. You don't sit there with your dick in your hand and then get called out on it.
They try and do that. They try and do that and this is the whole thing. The North Brisbane game is a prime example of them doing it and then making it but the other way. So, what's the worst backlash? I think subconsciously the umpires are probably thinking, well, if I make the call and then I get proved wrong, it's going to be everywhere. If I just don't make the call, it's not going to be as bad.
Yeah, I think you're correct, because then they could say, well, I saw this and I thought, there's no pride. They're like, okay, you know what, maybe not. But yeah, I think I do think you're right there, because they're going to get crucified with the wrong decision, but if they don't call it, they're kind of like, well, they can then find evidence as to why they didn't call it, and it's probably a bit easier to prove. Maybe I didn't think they had enough opportunity. Interesting though, Ryan went absolutely big. He went 117. Big by his standards. I mean, his last 5
Joel
weeks.
Hamley.
Ryan.
The big one there. The big one there for me was Andrew Brayshaw, who got a role that he could actually play without Fife in the team. And I really do honestly believe that if they're going to pursue with Andrew Brayshaw, pick number 2 a couple of years back, I think next year could be a really big breakout for him. I'm tipping that he will have a massive role change in the preseason. If he does, if I notice that he has some really nice scores in the JLT, he might be a smoky to jump into my standard team. But again, on the lookout in your keeper leagues. I already picked him up this week. But on your lookout for Andrew Brayshaw, who I think can have a massive, massive year next year and really break out and show the world what he has, because he played absolutely spectacular
Yeah.
against Sydney this week just gone.
I
So.
like your optimism, Chris, but I'm more Bray uncertain.
Fair enough. I just really like him. Interesting to see if Rory Lobb will come up this week after being slightly injured in that game. And
there's quite a few that are definitely uncertain. It's kind of like last week where people are asking questions on who should I do if Hearn's out. And I'm like, well, maybe you should wait for the team announcement and then we can decide where you sit. But yeah, I think for me it was Ryan and Lloyd, defender on defender, just racking up hill. Both did well. 117, 121.
Lloyd went big early. I think he had over 40 disposals in that match, and he was going really big early. And then, like Lloyd does, where sometimes he gets the ball and just kicks it and it's a direct clanger.
Yeah, pretty much.
With them,
42 disposals and only 121. So it's definitely not his biggest day out. But it was interesting. And so I mean, JPK got an 87. Rampy, again, the bane of my existence, a 98. So he has been really consistent, which is, good for him. Good for Rampy. He's bound to have one good year out of 5, right?
Another couple to keep an eye on in your keepers. Again, I keep harping on it, but Georgie Hewitt, again, I think played well, but didn't really reflect in his scoring with only an 86. But Rowbottom, I don't mind him for a nice little keeper smoky. He's played really good if he gets the right role, and if they start transitioning the older team out of the midfield. I'm talking JPK, I'm talking Luke Parker. If they start getting less midfield time and start pushing the likes of Rowbottom, Hewitt, and to a lesser extent Ollie Florent into that midfield mix, I think that Rowbottom could be one to really benefit next year. But it might be a little bit too early for Rowbottom. We'll see how we go.
Sounds good.
Anyway, on to...
Sorry, Chris, I just thought I'd mute you there. Stonesy told me I have the power to mute you, so I just muted your voice for a millisecond. Thanks, Stonesy. What a great suggestion.
Oh, yeah. I really hate you, Stonesy, so die.
Die! Very cool. We've still got 3 games to get through.
Yeah, so Geelong and Hawthorn, it was a bit more one-sided than the scoreline led on. I thought Hawthorn pretty much controlled the game.
Yeah, Clarko, just genius.
Again,
he's providing the blueprint to defeat a lot of sides, and I think a lot of coaches are like, especially if they're about to go up against an opponent a couple of weeks after Hawthorn, they'll probably just go, you know what, let's just wait and see what Hawthorn does. We can see what works and see what we can adapt, and let's just work after Clarko. Best solution you've got.
True that. I was a little bit disappointed with Sicily's scoring. I hoped that with, unfortunately, Impey going down really early, that he would have had a spike, and it'll be interesting to see. Something that Fantasy Freako tweeted out this week was that Sicily had been playing mainly key position defender in the last 4 weeks. So with Impey gone, Impey has been the one that has been really that sort of either loose defender or the one that peels off. I do believe that Sicily will now go back to his usual role of that, third marking tall intercept defender and rebounding halfback. So we'll be interesting to see what happens this week, and I wouldn't write off Sicily just yet.
I actually think Sicily's going to go big this week, like I thought when they played Brisbane last time. I think he went to 108, or at least he went fairly solid. But just again, the forward line matchups, we have a couple of guys that can mark. I mean, Hipwood doesn't generally get too many. He gets quite a few overhead, but he really leads up and works hard. McStay gets up really high, but I think Sicily, I'd back him in a one-on-one contest over Dan McStay. So it's kind of one of those things where I think his matchup against Brisbane is actually really suited to SuperCoach. Brisbane, they play that fast game, so it depends on how it comes. If Hawthorn can slow up Brisbane and that ball comes in bombing to a contest, it's going to really sit into his hands. If Brisbane can actually break free and play that loose sort of football, it's going to be really hard to actually, because once
Brisbane's winning this week.
Yeah, once they hit space.
Brisbane are Hawthorn's bogey team, so
yeah, I think
the way lock in a Brisbane win this week, mate.
I think the way if Brisbane play the style they can play, I think their style of play doesn't suit well with Hawthorn. So interesting though. So we'll go through with the rest of them. So McAvoy, Howe, Warple. Warple's probably one of his rare hundreds.
He just doesn't have a high ceiling, but he also doesn't have a really super low floor. So
he's not killing you, but he's not winning you that many games. He's kind of just contributing you.
Yeah, and look, if you started with him, you can't really be too upset. So
no, he's not burning your trades. He's not like bringing in and getting rid of Kelly. So
what if we say at the start of 87 would be what we think, and anything over that would be a bonus. He's averaging 90.
Yeah, I mean, he's over that.
He hasn't been a terrible pick. He's edging on the top 10. He's not a top 10 forward now, but I wouldn't mind him as, say, an F7 or M9. So another keeper league smoky that I'd be looking at, because I've spent a lot of time this week looking at that. Charlie Constable, I think, could have a really big impact next year. He already proved this year that he's the sort of guy that he can get you 26 to 35 possessions, most of them contested, and score really well when he does. So keep an eye out on him in your keeper leagues, and get on him.
He'd be pretty cheap right now too, because he's not always playing.
Exactly
so,
right.
Yeah, he's definitely the one to get through
for sure. Yeah.
Duncan again flying under the radar. We did say with his soft draw and the fact that they like to get it in his hands, he's playing generally a little bit more pushing back and then helping out that defence line a little bit. So he's not quite as much in the pure mids. He does run through there for sure, 100%. But it's 123 this week. He did well again last week. He was dirt cheap, and he still is very cheap. They run home though. Duncan, even though he's not playing that pure traditional midfielder, he's very adaptable. His disposal efficiency is just awesome. And if you are actually giving him more time, because he's not straight in that guts and it's all like contested and rushed, he's just absolutely tearing it. And it's no surprise that he is scoring really well. So against the weaker sides, he could just blow them apart with his disposal.
Absolutely. I still think he's a decent option if you're looking at that. He's only just over 500k.
Yeah, 502 from memory. Let me have a look. Duncan, 500 flat to $500,000 and $200. So super cheap.
So my option would be to bring him in this week.
He's only 300,000. He's only a 3% of sides, Chris.
Yeah, which is crazy. I mean, but having said that, I do think that Merritt is slightly better of an option if you don't have Merritt. But I was looking at Duncan this week. The only issue is I just don't have enough trades, because it would clear me out of trades. I'd have 0 trades for the end of the year, and I'd be relying on Bewley and Burgess and Jared Cameron as my backups, and it's not great.
Yeah, you leave yourself open in other lines, which is not what you want. So Hawkins came out with a 92, so the big hawk, and this is probably one of the bigger things. He actually started playing himself into a little bit of form. He got 2 goals, 17 disposals. He had one of the worst performing 5-week blocks, if you look at it, but he is so cheap. The cheapest I've ever seen someone in a while. For someone who did average 100 last year, he's dropped 201,000k. He is 351,000. I might actually bring him in this week, Chris, save myself a trade and have 3 left with a full side to make some other adjustments. It's just stupid. His break-even is now 66, which means that essentially you kind of have to bring him in now if he does have a good game.
It depends on how you see things, because I think for around about the same price, you could probably get a Jeremy Cameron.
No, Jeremy Cameron's like 390 on. He's about 40,000 more.
Close.
Especially after he had a good round. Let me just look at Cameron. No, he's 413 now, so he was 390, and now he's jumped up to 413k.
But are you looking at getting him on field, or are you looking at getting him as a, say, F7?
No, he'd be on field, but as in trying to...
I don't love it.
No, I know that, and I'll probably go Duncan or Merritt or something rather instead. But look, I'm honestly thinking about it, because this little glimmer of form could be what he needs to actually get himself into a good run. So it's more about trying to get someone that can get me around that 90 to 100 points while still giving 3 trades and possibly allowing me to make some moves in the final few weeks or something. But look, we'll just see. It's a cross between me being paranoid of running out of trades like I did last year, getting someone to actually do a roll, and his past 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds have been horrible. Before that, though, 98, 91, 122, 86, 100, 104, 119, 73, 111. It's, I get it, it is what it is, but for those who are definitely low on options, he's less than 30,000 more than Setterfield. That's how stupid it is. It's less than 30,000. Less than 30,000, or even you throw 50,000 on top, or 53,000 or whatever on top of Clark. And then you push Dunkley or you push Heaney as your swing, and then you play Hawkins there. You can loophole and swing Hawkins and Heaney. Heaney now becomes your Clark midfield forward swing for, 53,000 or something. It's not a bad option, and he's so cheap that when they come up against some easier sides, and he's now got a bit of confidence, they're coming into the back end of the year, Sydney, Fremantle, North Brisbane, Carlton. He could average you 90 to 100 quite comfortably for the last 5 rounds.
Nice. I don't.
It's a risk. It's a risk. 100%. It's a risk. But for 350k, I would bank him over Setterfield in a heartbeat.
yeah.
In a heartbeat for 30k.
Whether or not it's worth a trade, that's it.
Well, yeah.
Not
Well,
sure
yeah.
it is.
Well, either way, I have to make a trade. So it's whether I want to burn 2 trades to get a Duncan, or whether I want to burn 1 trade and get a Hawkins. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
I would rather go 2, but it's purely matchup based. I'd be just more comfortable going into a heads-up league matchup with Duncan versus
Duncan, who can go 140 or something or other. I got you anyway, so it doesn't matter.
But, yeah, that's just how I would look at it. Now, moving on to the second last game. So it was West Coast versus Melbourne, and would it please you to know, sir, that the number 4 points leader for the midfield for the entire year is Clayton Oliver?
Wow.
Yep.
Number 4.
Yep.
Because he's played every game.
Having said that, 100%. Having said that does exclude Josh Dunkley, who's actually number 3. So, but he's the number 1 forward.
Right.
So, pure midfielder, Clayton Oliver. Clayton Oliver is number 4 in overall points for the year.
Dunkley!
Yeah, I don't have to. So it's 1 Lachie Neale, 2 Jack McRae, and there's only 15 points. No, I lie, 18 points separating the 2 of them. Number 3 is actually Marcus Bontempelli, and number 4 is Clayton Oliver.
Wow. He has got a big ceiling, and he hasn't had too many super poor games. So I think it's kind of really blended out pretty well, and he's played every game. So you look at a lot, like your Kellys and stuff, who we brought in after he was injured early on. Fife's missed a couple of games, and they're pretty much the main ones. Like Cornelio's now missed, so it's just been a bit of a mess.
Hold on. Nat Fife has pushed out to the 10th best mid.
That's okay. I'm okay with that.
So not too bad. Having said that,
where's Matt Crouch then, Chris? Seeing that we're comparing.
Mate, so far down. Because how many games he missed?
That too, actually.
I didn't have Matt Crouch over Fife. I couldn't have. That was 60k difference.
No.
I had Oliver over Fife. And I chose Lachie Neale as well, but I didn't consider those 2 as the anyway,
as mentioned, Anyway, another one.
Also the 8th overall scorer in terms of if you include forwards and rucks, because of course you've got to include Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy in there too. So he hasn't been a terrible pick at all.
So let's touch base on Salem, because Salem for Melbourne, and I don't know what's happening with my stats screen here. Season stats, here we go. So he's in 5% of sides, so quite a few people have faith. He's now averaging 98. He's always had a big ceiling the last couple of years, but the problem is he would go missing after he'd have a big game. So he's one of those yo-yo type of players. This year he starts to be piecing it a bit together more, because he's averaging 98 for the year. He's played 15 rounds, and when you look at it, he's got a 106 average over his last 3, a 111 over his last 5. But this big ceiling though, Chris, and this is where we're going to get into. So from round 14, after their bye, 104, 133, 87, 94, and a 139. So this year though, when you look at it, round 1 he went 139. Round 8 he went 122, round 15 he went 133, and round 18 he went 139. So he does have a very satisfying ceiling. He's also another one though, if you're looking at draft matchups, and say you're playing against some mates and they have fairly typical people, possibly injury-prone people, you could throw in a Salem. Again, if you're ranked from 5 to 9, like 5 to 8, and you need something that's going to possibly win you that matchup for that round to spike you through and actually take your championship, I think you can't go too wrong with him either. They're playing Saints, Richmond, Collingwood, Sydney, and North. Again, Saints forward line, could score against. Collingwood's forward line you can score against. So the ball leaks out. So Sydney's the same, and North Melbourne's the same. So Richmond's probably the only one there, but they play such a hard, fast attacking brand of footy that Salem could still get a lot of the ball. It's very interesting. He is now priced at 507k, so he's definitely getting up there. Again, for me though, Whitfield has to be hands down number 1 if you don't have a player, just because he's so damaging. But
there's one person I'd probably put over Salem though. Rampy.
You know the worst part is I actually paused trying to think.
You're like, oh, who was that?
I was like, who's that? I was like, I wonder who's mentioning. I can't believe it just fell for that. Brayshaw tagging, as we said earlier, Elliot Yeo, running with him all day. Elliot Yeo literally saved by the fact that he had, how many tackles was it? It was like 9 tackles. Just, Lucky's just a tackling beast. He still gave away a couple free kicks from being so aggressive, but look, he did do really well. I think he had 4 frees for, 2 against, so it worked out pretty well. Again, I'm just lucky that Yo went like 50 points in the last quarter and changed the game, because if Melbourne ran away with that, Yo was definitely scoring horrible.
Oh yeah,
just horrible. And Darling, just
sometimes he can't. Sometimes he doesn't pull it back, but he's definitely the sort of player that can, out of nowhere, pull out a really good score.
And Darling is definitely looking daring.
Yeah. Well, he was dominating their back line, which is in shambles anyway. Was always going to get dominated by them.
Okay, when you bring up Darling, remember how cheap Darling was? He was like $200,000 cheaper. What did he get down to? Like $260? It was stupidly cheap, and even then I said he could be just a good cash cow option, because his biggest low point was at 322k. Okay,
320k.
Okay, 322k.
That was against Gold Coast in round 7. He posted 132, and since then he's averaged 94.
Okay. That being said, though, he's still got a 61, a 42 in there. But you are correct. 104, 135, 61, 42, 123, 100, 75, and a 125. So, again, someone that's probably, I guess, Hawkins like, except Hawkins probably... I can't even say Hawkins doesn't bottom out that much, because he had a 25 game, so there goes all credibility.
I don't know if you remember me saying this, but I 100% said at the bottom of this, I think he can average what he did last year, which was 86 points per game. He's currently averaging 80.8, and he's trending upwards. And I said at the time, in order for him to do it, he would need to average 96 to the rest of the year. I reckon he can. That's literally what I said. He's now averaging 94.5 from in that time. So
interesting.
It hasn't been terrible. And that's I like to consider myself a little bit of a Nostradamus, but
some people call me the songbird of our generation. So I did watch the end of this game, and Melbourne could not kick straight to save their life. I mean, what did they kick in the end? 11-12. Okay, so they started off though 1-5. The first quarter, which is when the game is really on the line, they kicked 1 goal 5. They could not read it. And listening to BT, he's like, how do you not know to kick it at the left goalpost? You've just watched your teammate kick it and it's gone pushed right. You've then had another shot and go, have you learned? No, they kick at the same spot and it pushes right. The teammate goes, okay, comes in. Guess what? The ball goes right. They weren't adjusting. BT was getting so furious. It was hilarious.
It's funny. It was hilarious as well. So I was having a bit of a dig at you for captaining Max Gawn. I think he was on like 27 or something, and then out of nowhere got 40 points in 6 minutes of game time.
He got lucky because he got a contested mark, I think.
Then he shanked it, like he almost
kicked it behind, and then he also got another, I think, took it out of the right, got a contested possession and booted it, and it looked like the horrible kick, but it actually went to inside 50, and someone came through with a spool to make it to a contest. When I saw he was on like 30, and I was just like getting towards halftime, I was like, my life is literally, I've just pissed away the top few hundred with Max Gawn, which is pretty much how I was feeling. So he really pulled through though. He got a 132, so he did really well. Oliver was the highlight for me. Oliver just looked really tough at it.
Unfortunately, Oliver died because he was on 133 at 3/4 time.
Yeah. But
so he could have gone much bigger.
And it kind of coincides with the fact that Melbourne just fell away. But he played really hard, tough footy, and he looked by far, like, for 3 of those quarters, I thought he was best on ground for me. He just... it's one of those Oliver games where you're like, he's switched on and you're watching him and you're like, this guy's just a jet. And sometimes you forget that, but he looked really on. His pressure was there, he was running hard, and I was just super impressed.
He got lucky a couple of times because some of his inside 50s were just spray balls, like just banging on the boot. And the person on the other end got a contested grab, which gave him a goal assist.
Lucky there.
Exactly right, yeah. A couple of lucky ones where it could have easily have been a turnover ball or a clanger kick that turned into a goal assist. That's a 10-point swing. So, he got a bit lucky with some of his disposals, but he played very, very well. And look, I'll be honest, he hasn't played that terribly all year. It's just when he does do those hat kicks, and a lot of those inside midfielders do, because of the structure of the Melbourne forward line, they haven't been getting to the contest of the fall of the ball, which means that his even though he's playing very similar to how he has the last couple of years, his scoring hasn't reflected that at times because there's been turnovers instead of going to a...
I know a few people have been turned off him for next year, but for me, I think if they sort out their forward line, I think, again, he's going to get more score assists because of it. And
he's going to have a 3-year average of like 112.
Yeah, and not only that, it's going to be his... he's going to get more score assists and less balls intercepted coming inside 50, so I think it's a no-brainer for me.
It's such a no-brainer. He's literally had in my opinion, very similar to Lockie Neal of last year, where he had a 3-year average of 110. And everyone's just like, yeah, just lock it in because you know you're going to get a 110. Clayton Oliver's the exact same, except he's younger with more upside. I can't fathom a world where I don't start with Clayton Oliver next year. He's still going to be around the same price, around 600k, and you're going to bank a 110 for the season. You're going to say, see you later at the end of it. I don't get a world where you wouldn't pick him.
No, I'm with you there. Let's move on to the last game, Chris. We can then touch on questions. It's getting on to an hour and 20. Thank you for those joining us. I have quickly checked across to the chat, so we will get to those in a second. So like Jay Havey, Bushley, Stonesy, thanks, boys. I'll get back to you in a second. And Bomber as well, mate, so we'll get to you boys soon. Let's go to the last game, though, Chris. So when we get across to Saints and the Bulldogs, it's the same curse of the new coach.
Yeah, pretty much. We picked this earlier in the week, but you know what? I forgot in my tipping when I was looking at it to change from Bulldogs to Saints. So I actually tipped the Bulldogs this week, which is just a dumb idea when I knew that the curse exists. Rowan Marshall again, really good. Started off really poorly, and people were saying to me and you, "Oh, it looks like he's going to have a really dud game." And then before you know it, he hits 30, 40 points in 5 minutes of footy, and then all of a sudden it's game on.
Pulls a max score, basically.
Absolutely, he did. And then he was on for the rest of the game. Also, of course, Jack Billings continued hot runner form with a 113. I think he was really fantastic. Jack Loney was probably best on ground for me. Set him up early, and when he's playing really well, he's outstanding. But Jack Loney, of course, in his traditionally that he doesn't necessarily hit that form often enough, and he's not consistent enough with his form, and that's his knock in his game. A nice little 99 for Blake Acres in another return to a good role for Blake. So another one I would look out for in draft and keeper leagues on the waivers. I think Blake Acres, you got him?
Keeper league, yeah. I got him for free off the keeper league. Stonesy dropped him nice and early like a rookie.
Hunter Clark as well, thanks.
I was about to say Hunter Clark, who also got in keeper league, Chris, so you're welcome. He's actually...
I was looking for him today. I'm like, maybe he's in the wire. I can get sneaky little waiver.
I actually got him last week because I started to notice a little bit of a role change with Clark. So he's actually coming off the back of the square a little bit. He's getting quite a bit of ball. He actually has quite a good disposal, and he was a fairly high draft pick. So it's these kind of guys. If you're in these leagues, sometimes the guys in the first couple of years, they're a high pick, and they might not perform. So you need to keep them. Pardon me. So, but high pick now starting to get a little bit more mature, having a bit more exposure to the systems and everything like that, starting to deliver.
It's two things. First of all, his body's definitely filled out in the last 6 months. Say
someone's been googling,
but the role change, of course, helps him because these guys that are picked in the top 10 spots, they've been playing on the ball their entire career. They jump into the AFL and they're playing halfback. They're playing the forward line,
and it's a common theme though. Even like in the lines there, so you have quite a few players that they just can't play different positions. And Keys is still in the seconds because he cannot adapt to another position. He is a midfielder. He can't play forward very well. He had a great game on the weekend though. But these guys, they need to adapt and they need time. So Chris,
that's good. I 100% agree with you. Two of the top 4 midfielders again in Bont and McRae just keep. In McRae and Dunkley keep doing their thing. Bond had a little bit of a lighter game. He played up forward at patches, but of course I think that ankle was definitely hampering him. I'm surprised they even played him. I'm very, very surprised they even played him.
They thought they needed to win though. I think that was the issue. And once the game was cooked, definitely. Once that game was cooked, their final
chances are done now. They will not make them.
Yeah, and once the game was cooked, it's kind of like well, there's no point smashing his ankle through the guts now. So I think it was kind of they needed to win, and they'll see how the game panned out. And then when Saints showed up and actually showed up to play, then I think it kind of cemented his spot in the forward line.
I do agree. And the other consideration how many ball to the end of the year is how does that impact his role and whether or not they even play him. if he's got a sore ankle and they're out of finals, are they going to rest him at some point?
Yep. Maybe
I do believe that is. So
Yeah.
I don't think you can trade him in now, even if you've got the cash. I can't see him as being a trade-in target.
You know what I like about you, Chris, is you trying to find reasons to hate on people that you don't have.
I honestly believe I wouldn't trade him in now.
That's yeah, no, so I'm with you there. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much the gist of it for that. So it'll be interesting though how that mix up. I think Liberatore coming back in does help with Bontempelli if he does decide to, maybe Liber can play a bit more of that inside mid. A couple of weeks time, you have even those like McLean who can actually take a bit of that brunt in that midfield and try and lessen the burden. They have a plethora of people that can play through there. I mean, even Lipinski can then get back into that midfield like he did about a month ago when he was actually getting a lot of ball. They don't need Bontempelli to be smashing his guts in that midfield. Even though he's an amazing user and he is brilliant to watch and he kills it, you have Dunkley in there, you have McRae in there. They can easily get a few other guys that can hold their role and just sit Bontempelli forward or, again, as you said, rest and just keep his body fresh for later because he has been beaten up. For the last couple of years now, he's been a little bit beaten up through his groins and whatnot.
Absolutely. Now, someone else to keep an eye on that is going to be dropping below 500k, again, is Caleb Daniels. So he had a 68 and he now has a break-even of 150 after, of course, being injured and out for a few weeks. So I would watch him this week and see what his drops down to, but I can see him going down to just below 500k. So as that last upgrade before the final starts, he might be one to have a look at if you are looking for someone that you need in your forward line to round everything in. So, just one to keep an eye on.
Fair call. Okay, so I'm going to run through a couple of questions now quickly, so we won't go too much over time here, guys. Appreciate you there, so hopefully everything's worked out nicely. Okay, so we're just going to go through some questions now, guys. So if this is it for you, thank you very much for joining us, and we will catch up with you shortly and send probably some tweets out with the team announcements. Don't think I'll be doing any team announcements pods this week because I have plans tomorrow night, and I also have football Friday night footy.
Okay, you with your social life and shit.
Mate, I've been busy. Okay, so here's a good one. So El Corrala, sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. Off the topic question,
Jay, I think. Hey,
yeah.
Jay?
Who do you reckon will be in the granny this year? So I've managed to pay an exorbitant amount of money for a ticket package. And are mildly aroused. So, I can tell you what, if Collingwood make it, Chris will pay you a pretty penny for those tickets. I know from previous experience.
I actually had Ash come to me literally this weekend just gone. And if you're watching Ash, I don't know if you are, but love you.
That's a bit different, Chris. Normally it's on you.
That's true. She said, look, I don't know how they're going this year, but if they do make the granny again, I'm happy to take you down. I was like, we do not have the money for that. We are literally paying like $5,000 for this stupid wedding in February. Yes. And I was like so impressed. So yeah, that's what you need, guys. That's life goals. Get a girl who comes to you when they know that they're probably not even going to make the prelims. And says, but if they do, you're in. So.
For me, I think it's Richmond and probably West Coast at this point. I think for me, they're the informed. Yeah, they're the informed sides, and I think this time of year form pays. Yes, I'd love Brisbane to make it, but I think Brisbane aren't even they're probably fifth or something or other. I think Geelong and
maybe try winning a final first before you start.
Well, pretty much they could pull an Essendon and be out quicker than who knows what. But for me, I think the top four are Richmond, West Coast, Collingwood, and Geelong, and Giants are a smoky if they get some players back. So there's really about 5 teams that I think are actually quite up in the mix. I think it will be Richmond and against West Coast because I think West Coast will get their top. They'll probably get a home final when it counts, and I think they'll probably make use of it. So
yeah, I think that the key difference between, say, Richmond and West Coast and everybody else in that sort of top echelon right now, maybe excluding Brisbane, is that they've got their players coming back at the right time of the year, whereas Collingwood and GWS and Geelong, they're having players that they're losing at this time of the year that they're not going to necessarily get back until maybe just before the finals. So you're going to have Collingwood's mix and GWS's mix is going to change massively over the next 6 weeks to try and make sure that they get their best players for finals. Whereas, Richmond and West Coast, they're currently rolling through and getting all their best 22 players back, and that's the big difference in terms of the form of the teams right now. So I think if everyone had their best complement of players, it would be very, very different. But at this point, I think you're absolutely bang on with that. West Coast and Richmond are definitely the informed teams.
Okay, fair call. Okay, so Stonesy says, how good's Mitch Lewis? Hawks finally have the answer for the forwards. I think everyone's going to be excited on Mitch Lewis. He's had a couple good games, but I wouldn't get carried away there.
That's getting excited about it.
They're getting very excited by a guy who can actually take a mark in the forward line that isn't sick dog. So Jay Davey says, so we have 6 trades left and just enough cash to do Goldie to Gawn and Heaney to Marshall. Do I pull the trigger? 6 trades left, so I think for me,
6 trades.
Easy.
Bang.
You'll have 4 trades and you can go bang bang. I think you do that. So easy call there. And sounds like I think your mic was echoing for a little bit there. Sounds like a race call from the Flemington, Chris, apparently. So there you go. Looks like you had a little bit of microphone issues. I saw you doing a bit of a fiddle over there, and lucky it was all above the table, mate. Otherwise, I'd be a bit concerned if your hands were doing these ones. But
the reason is because we're connected via Skype. I actually just changed pages, and I don't have the most reliable Wi-Fi where I am. So it would have impacted the bandwidth at that exact moment in time. So I do apologise, guys, because I'm browsing the internet while I'm doing this to have the information I need for the podcast. Something that something we need to talk about as well before we sign off is, of course, Bubble Boys and captains, but we'll get to the rest of these questions before we go through.
That's fine. Well, pretty much this covers it on anyway. With so the last one is Whitfield. Is he a must-have this week, which we've said many times that he is such a good price and he's one of the most important guys that you can have. I think he's under 520 now, so he's just cheap as. Get on him. Hill is the main one, the Bubble Boy for GWS. Huge and absolutely.
I think he's pretty much the only one worth looking into.
He is pretty much the only one. I hear that West is, I think, debuting. I think it's West, the father-son, debuting for Bulldogs this week, which is awesome for him.
Yep. And the other one that may get a call-up is Paddy Naish. Already played his 2 games, so he's technically on the bubble this week. He had a best-on-ground performance in the 2s. So
and Andrews out. Oh, although Walker's probably in. Walker has to be in for Andrews, and then Naish might get another gig for someone else.
Well, that's Naish plays for Richmond, so that's...
Oh, sorry, wrong one. Sorry, wrong Naish. I was thinking of Hinge. I was thinking of Hinge. Sorry.
Hinge is injured. He's out for like 5 or 6 weeks, I think. So
Naish, Hinge, they're both weird names, Chris.
Same.
Brad Foz says, do I trade Logue to Whitfield, pushing Sick Dog or Ryan to my bench and leave himself 2 trades, or just and no cash, or just hold? So I think if you can get Logue to Whitfield, pushing Sick Dog or Ryan to your bench, and still have 2 trades left at this point, I think you just do that. That's my opinion.
I agree, but it also depends on... I did see Brad posted that exact question on our Facebook, which we would have got to eventually, but thank you very much for putting in there, Brad. The only issue is, of course, if Hearn doesn't come up. So if Hearns plays this week, which I think he probably will, especially after today, he was seen running around the track and in full training today, so I do consider him to be playing this week, but if he's not named, then you may have an issue there. So just... See what you need to do to be able to get the best available team every single week. But with that amount of trades, I would pull that trigger for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And
the other one that might obviously be out is Fife, and he's got Fife and not much cover on his mid bench.
No, he's got some mid bench. He's got Hill he brought in, and he's still got Hind who played on the weekend. So it's his forward line. He's got cover. No, I know, but he's got Chol on the forward line.
I think if he doesn't, I think the whole reason he gets cash is to go down to Hill. So he would probably still have Dylan Clark as cover for Fife. So if Fife's not named, I'd rather hold the trades and then play Dylan Clark over Ian Hill or Hind. So that's the consideration. So it does vary on team announcements. It's all to do with Fife and what happens with Shannon Hearn.
Fair call. All right, I think that pretty much then wraps us up there for that part of it, Chris. Yeah, that's all the questions on that one. So, look, I think that's pretty much it. I think this has been a comprehensive game-by-game play. I know it's been a bit different. This one has been a little bit more draft and keeper league friendly, particularly then also looking at other people you can bring into your side, things that we've noticed, even more position changes. So I know it's been a bit long today, but going by the game-by-game, normally we just sort of talk about a few things we noticed. Today did go on a little bit longer, but I think giving you some insight from here onto the future, from here through to the finals rounds, because once you've made your last changes, that's it. And for those of you looking to make changes in the keeper leagues and the draft leagues, now is the time to make those changes for finals. And so that's why we went a little bit longer today. Hopefully everything recorded fine and we can get this up on the line.
On the line?
On the line.
Now, in terms of captains, I think it's a fairly easy VC this week with Grundy playing Richmond. I can't see Soldo or Nank if Nank comes back in.
I think Nank will be, I think, possibly in the mix. And either way, first game back, though, I would still be taking Grundy.
Nank's stats were terrible, so I don't know how he played.
I'm not falling for the no VC Grundy trick.
No, definitely VC Grundy. Your backup, you've got heaps of options. I mean, you could go Neil against the Hawks, even though he might cop the Daniel Howe trade. I think the most obvious one's probably Cripps against Adelaide or Gawn against Marshall. You've also got a McRae against Freo, a Fifeless Freo potentially. So worst case scenario, again, you've got Sydney against the Cats. So there's a plethora of captain options out there, but I would say no one's pretty much going to get past your VC.
If Fife doesn't get up, Dunkley and McRae could go absolutely monster, and that would probably be my better chance. Carlton versus Adelaide, Carlton, Cripps has just come off a poor round. I wouldn't trust that, depending on how his ankle or how his body's holding up. This was a good VC option for, I think you did it one time, he had a bad week, and then you put a VC on, he went 190.
190, yeah.
I don't think it's going to be this week, and I think you have to VC Grundy, so don't captain Cripps would be my call. Neil against Hawks, I think they're going to probably put Howe with him. Howe is a late in, but I think they will actually put some attention into stopping Brisbane's midfield.
Lions. Lions is the informed mid at the Lions right now.
Either way, I think they'll put some work into it. Maybe they'll put Warple to run through or something. I think they're going to definitely put some work into that Brisbane midfield structure. Just being Clarko, I wouldn't touch it. I actually think Clayton Oliver could also be a good one against the Saints. Saints got a win last week. They're probably riding their coattails thinking they're all that, but I don't think it's going to happen. So for me,
I think if you're going anyone at Melbourne, if you don't have Gawn, then maybe Oliver. But Gawn against Marshall, I think I would happily go with that matchup in. I think he's going to have a week.
So I think it depends if Fife's out. If Fife's out, changes.
I also still think Gawn's still not 100% fit, but I mean, who is at this point in the season? So
yeah, they're pretty much all just running on fumes. So that pretty much runs it for me. I think. Yeah, Essendon, you could go Zach Merritt against Gold Coast and just hope he doesn't get tagged, because he could go 150 also. Yep.
Excellent. Sounds good.
That pretty much wraps us up. Thank you very much for joining us for the special guest named Chris and the top 500 player named Ben. So thank you for sticking with us.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for joining us, Chris. And sorry, it's been a long one, my friend, but I do appreciate your insight as always.
It's all good. I enjoyed it. So, potentially this is the MO that we use when I'm traveling, because it looks like I'm going to be traveling a little bit more than I thought. I might even be away again next week, but it'll only be for a day, so let's hope it's not on the day that we choose to podcast. We'll cross our fingers there.
Yep, and next time I'll try and use the Skype window instead of the screen capture, so that way you won't see Inception like you see the Inception now. So, look, thank you for those that have stuck with us, and may you #bless your team this weekend. And look, let us know. Send us a message on Twitter or Facebook. We'll try and get back to you as soon as we can, because it's really going to be, at this point in time, it's really a personal situation, because all teams are different. There's people with 10% players and 5% players and 20%. So it's really going to be situational, which is why we're probably better off receiving this message personally. So thanks again, and thanks, Chris, and we'll see you all again soon.
Catch you later, guys.
Thanks. Bye.